So, the translations are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 347, and the heroes are going to have their hands full with Shigaraki once again. I'm sorry, this is too many hands for this chapter. I can't make any more hand puns because, oh gosh, there's so many hands in this chapter. I mean, if Hirokoshi didn't have a fetish for hands, this chapter pretty much confirms it, and you'll get to see why that's going to be the case right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 347 titled Inflation. Ooh, that's a really icky name for this chapter in more ways than one, because from what we see in this chapter, a lot happens in this chapter. Once again, we get a lot of fighting in this chapter and setting up to something pertaining to Deku and Toga and potentially Uraraka at the end of this chapter. But for the most part, what we see in this chapter is a lot of action, some elaboration on the quirk singularity theory, and like I said, something involving Deku and potentially his ships with a certain character. I wonder who it could potentially be. Wink wink nudge nudge, it's Toga. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to be talked about, so we'll jump right into the view, starting off with the first part of this chapter, where we see that Shigaraki has literally created a tidal wave of fingers that is pretty much destroying what UA is, as we have him pretty much explaining what's going on as the heroes are questioning what's going on. Monoma is being questioned if Eraser is still active, and it is, and we have Shigaraki explaining what's going on. And he explains it that what is going on is that his flesh is growing, and just like the hairs on his head or the fingernails on his fingers, that this is just the result of the quirk singularity theory giving birth to a body that is adapting to the quirk, and that this is something that the heroes were so oblivious to. So from what we get with Shigaraki's explanation, this is something that we could have predicted was going on, that this is not the result of a simple quirk or a multitude of quirks, but that this is the result of what quirks are eventually going to do to the human body, because as we know, quirks have the ability to alter the human body through the quirk factor to be able to adjust the person's body to be able to use the quirk effectively. And that this is something that generally happens from birth or from when the quirk activates and it changes the body. For instance, Shoto's body is resistant to both ice and cold because he has the quirk of half hot, half cold. Or Ida being more resistant to like drag forces and G forces on his body because of his engine quirk. So in the case of Shigaraki, when he has All for One and all of these quirks inside of him, his body has adapted in a way to handle this power, and just in this case, and it's resulted in his body just growing this mound of flesh made out of fingers. And this is potentially something that we've also seen with the quirk of One for All, as we've seen that Deku's body has also adapted to fit the quirk, where it's able to withstand the weight and the power of the quirk being used on his body, even though he is quirkless. So yeah, this is pretty much diving into the idea of what the quirk singularity is, and whether or not we're going to get an answer or a solution to it, we are seeing it in action right now via both Shigaraki and potentially Deku. So yeah, after Shigaraki with his fleshy fingers slams Mirko away, which, hey look, Mirko is a K. Come on, My Hero Academia fandom. Why do you always jump to conclusions when it comes to people's deaths? I mean, come on, have we not learned anything from manga at all? So yeah, Mirko is alive, and actually what's very cool and interesting is that she's able to just shout spares, and when she does, she's able to just get spare arms and limbs from something that pops out of the ground, so that's cool to see. But we also get to see a funny and cool interaction between Bakugo and Mirko as they begin to argue amongst themselves. Bakugo wants her to call him by his hero name, Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite, as Bakugo is trying to pick a fight with her. As we just have Best Jeanist just being the father figure that he is and telling them to pretty much focus up, as it's also revealed that Mandalay is also here relaying a message to Eraser from Deku, and how Midoriya pretty much confirms where he is, which is Octo Island, which we're going to get a better look at in the next few pages. But Deku is also telling Eraser that he's at this island, he was brought there by Toga, and that he needs to be warped before his communication is cut off. And here's where the chapter builds a little bit more tension. And this is probably something that we could have realized last chapter, but it's pretty much confirmed in this chapter. That Eraser cannot be turned off in this fight at all, and that Monoma has to keep Eraser on Shigaraki at all times, because if he doesn't, there's going to be a 10-second delay because Monoma is unable to use 2 quirks at once. If Shigaraki can use decay through all of these fingers, they're all done for. So this is going to add to the tension. The fact that Deku won't be able to get there and that he has to find his way to UA on his own. He cannot use Warp Gate to bring him there or risk the entirety of UA being destroyed by these decaying potential fingers. And that the heroes there are on their own and have to fight off this monster by themselves, as they pretty much confirm it, with Best Jeanist saying that, yeah, we may not have one for all, but we're still going to beat him down. So yeah, this could potentially lead to some of these characters potentially dying, as we see Best Jeanist, Kamui Woods, Nejire, Miracle, Bakugo, as well as our dear boy Tamaki ready to fight Shigaraki. So, I don't want to give predictions on who I think is going to die, but Mandalay, you may want to get out of the situation because you may die. I mean, I don't want Koda to have another dead parent, so I doubt Horikoshi will go that route. But yeah, some of these characters are going to get heavily injured and maimed, more than they already are. So, that's pretty much what one half of the chapter is, and we're getting more into the second half of the chapter, where we get a simple explanation for where Deku and the other pro heroes are. They're apparently on an island called Octo Island that is apparently under the rule of Gang Orca, and it seems to be a very lovely resort, and it looks very nice. Hopefully nothing bad happens to the resort. Something bad happens to the resort, because you have to remember, there are literal high-end Nomu here, who one of these creatures is just sending parts of his body careening into the ground, causing waves into the ocean or the ground, as we get to see a whole bunch of heroes fighting off a lot of these high-end villains. Oh, by the way, we get to see that Moonfish is also here. Oh man, Moonfish, how have you been? Man, you look good. What's going on? Has anything changed about you? I need flesh. Okay, so yeah, nothing's really changed about Moonfish. Oh, what are the odds? So surprising. But yes, as we get to see that the Tartarus villains are attacking the heroes and vice versa, we actually get a unexpected yet surprising cameo from a filler character via Sirius, the one character from Tsuyu's filler episodes where she was helping with Silky. Unfortunately, we don't see Silky, but hey, it's very cool to see that Horikoshi is incorporating filler characters into the actual canon of the manga. So, does this mean that all of the filler and all of the quote-unquote non-canon movies are canon? Yes. So, Froppy tells Sirius that Deku and Uravity got separated, as we get to see that they are beginning to regroup with one another. Deku tells Uraraka that he has to get to UA on his own, as Uraraka tells him that he needs to hurry up and do it, as Toga pops up out of nowhere, tells Deku not to go, and says, I love you, so please don't go. So, here's where the Toga part of this chapter comes into play, as Deku begins to question why Danger Sense didn't activate, even though Toga is coming and swinging at him with a knife. We have the fourth user pretty much chiming in as like, oh, she loves you so much, and because she loves you, Danger Sense doesn't register her as a threat. Wow, it's so great. I got to live to this moment to see this happening. So yeah, this pretty much does two things. One, it shows that even though Deku does have these quirks, that they are not something that can be inherently trained, and that they are still not great quirks on their own. And second, that when it comes to Danger Sense, it's solely based off the perception of the person outside of the user. In the case of, if someone is coming at you, but they do not have malicious intent in their actions, then Danger Sense will not perceive it as danger. So it's cool that we're getting a little bit more clarification for Danger Sense, but we're getting towards the end of this chapter where Deku wants to know what is going on and what she wants from him, what Toga wants. And she just comes out and says that, I want you to be my boyfriend, as there's a realization that when it comes to the love of this girl, that she puts people in danger because of it. End of chapter. So, you know how people were not expecting to get a love confession in the end during this war? Well, to be specific, a love confession from Uraraka, but hey, Deku finally got confessed to by a girl that loves him. It just so happens to be a girl who perceives love through violence. I'm sorry, Deku. You have my sympathies. You have to deal with this on your own. Pretty much what went on in this chapter was very interesting. I really did enjoy this chapter. I really enjoyed the reveal of what's going on with Shigaraki's body with the fleshy fingers and how it's related to the Quark Singularity Theory and how that can be connected to Deku as well. We got to see some cool banter interactions with Mirko, with Bakugo, which is something that the fandom has really been craving for within the series. We get to see the setup for the tension for why Deku can't immediately go back to UA, as well as providing tension to how the heroes are going to have to fight up against this monster Shigaraki with all of these fingers, while dealing with the fact that his quirks are erased, but if they become undone, that it's pretty much the end of them. As well as we get to see the fights going on in Octo Island involving Deku, Uraraka, as well as Toga, their involvement, what is going to be going on most likely, and how this is probably going to tie in not just to Toga's character, but also with Deku and Uraraka, and specifically potentially seeing that Toga has confessed her feelings to Deku, and how Uraraka has been suppressing her feelings the entire time. This may eventually lead to her also confessing to Deku, which will lead her to have more confrontation with Toga. So most likely next chapter, we're going to see where this love confession will go. Will Deku be able to accept her love confession? Will Uraraka confess to Toga? Will Toga attempt to kill Deku once again? Of all the things that I have said, the last one is definitely a yes. So we're just going to have to wait until next week to find out. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, why not leave a comment down below? And let me just ask you this one question. Do you think that Deku will accept Toga's confession? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this. Do all that cool jazz. And hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!